Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are talking Jules and the Polar Bears. That's right, Stephen Schnee's with me tonight. We just kind of go on a tangent, but you know what? It's all about the discussion, so hey, let's get started.
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Steve Schnee to the show. Steve, how are you? Nice to see you. Welcome.
Nice to see you, Grant.
Hey, always good. Tonight we are going to talk Jules and the Polar Bears. Yes, finally. We've been talking about doing this for months.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're finally going to talk about it. I love Jules and the Polar Bears, but I also love Jules Shear as a solo artist. And I really love Jules Shear as a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
I think his songwriting abilities obviously are incredible, and they shine on these Jules and the Polar Bear CDs or records, whatever you have.
Yes, yes.
But to start this out, Jules originally started out in a band called the Funky Kings.
Mm-hmm.
And what year was Funky Kings? 77?
Something like that. Yeah, 76
Something like
maybe.
77. They were out on Arista. It didn't do anything.
And but one of the other songwriters was
Jack Tempton.
Yeah, Jack Tempton, who co-wrote a bunch of stuff. And the Funky Kings, I think, was the original band that did Slow Dance and Swaying to the Music.
It could be. We know Jack's work. He wrote Peaceful Easy Feeling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He cut a lot of stuff with Glenn Frey.
Right.
Or wrote a lot of stuff.
But, on paper, I think the Funky Kings look great.
This is really funny because as big as a Jules Shear fan is, I never listened to the Funky Kings for some reason.
I've got it on vinyl. But
Jack Tempton, great songwriter. Jules Shear, great songwriter. There's a band right there.
Right.
Two very distinctly different great songwriters. And I don't know why. Of course, now I'm thinking like, oh, I should have bought that CD when it came out because I think it did come out. But
I think it came out as a Japanese import.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just like these bands. It's like we were talking Jellyfish prior.
Mm-hmm.
Love Jellyfish. Those reissues came out. I didn't buy them. Now they're going for an arm and a leg on Discogs and on eBay. Should have got them then.
Yeah.
But, you can't get everything. But there, Steve, there's always time to listen to the Funky Kings. It's out there.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And I'll be honest, I think the used CDs for the Funky Kings aren't expensive because no one knows the Funky Kings.
Yeah. My absolute love and adoration for Jules Shear started with the Polar Bears. And I remember back then, after the first album came out, I remember finding out he was in the Funky Kings. So I bought that album. And I just remember back then, I just thought, whatever. And I never really got that involved with that record.
It was such just a tiny little blip on the radar.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't make any waves. And you would think with the pedigree of the Funky Kings. And don't forget, Greg, who's played with Matthew Sweet, what's Greg's last name? He's played with a lot of people, a lot of studio musicians.
Mm-hmm.
He plays pedal steel. He plays the pedal steel part in off Matthew Sweet's Winona. It's tasty stuff. The band Funky Kings were a great band. A lot of talent. So the Polar Bears, I think the first album, here it is. I should probably take this out so we look professional. Got No Breeding, 1979, I do believe.
No, 1978.
78. I was close. I'm thinking Phonetics is like 79.
Yeah.
But this is the Columbia. What CD is that?
This is the Wounded Bird.
Yeah, this is the Columbia CD.
And the Wounded Bird CD actually has 4 bonus tracks, 3 of them previously unreleased, and all 3 of them absolutely wonderful Jules and the Polar Bears tracks.
And those, I'm assuming, came from the first record?
From the sessions. Early in their career, at some point, early in their career, their career only lasted a couple of years.
Right.
But Peter Gabriel produced some demos.
I didn't know that.
And I don't know if it was pre-first album or if it was in between albums or whatever, but when this came out, back then when this came out in 78 or whatever, I was into new wave, power pop, punk, post-punk. I could not figure out what these guys were like, because if you look at the picture, even through the crack there, one guy has a beard, a couple guys long hair. Jules has this big,
Poofy
mop
hair,
top.
yeah.
Yeah, poofy hair. So I had no idea what this was going to sound like. But I thought, you know what? They're like this LA band, and I was getting into all this stuff, the power pop bands, and that scene was just alive with bands, the Knack, 2020, The Last, Plimsolls, all these bands. So I thought this has to be power pop. It has to be kind of like that. No. It was, when I took it home, I go, what the hell is this? And the second listen, since I didn't have any, I already knew that it wasn't power pop. The second listen is when I just had to hold on to my chair and take a ride, because I fell in love with it. This on the second listen, it was so unique. Jules Shear manages to fit 17 words when 5 will comfortably fit.
Right.
And that's not all the time, and he doesn't rhyme all the time. A very, very unique songwriter, but so, there was this band that these 4 guys, again, I always talk about chemistry in my videos. These 4 guys, it was Stephen Haag, who went on to produce Pet Shop Boys and countless
other
bands.
Oh my God, yeah.
He was the keyboard player and co-producer or producer, and was it Richard Burdis?
Yeah,
was the guitar player. One of my friends, Mark Wade, actually took guitar lessons from Richard Burdis somewhere down the line.
Wow!
So I thought that was cool. And then I think David Beebe was the drummer, and this is unique. It's structured like a pop rock record: guitar, bass, drums, and keyboards. It's not a new wave record, though. It's not a prog record. It's not a power pop record. It's like everything, and with this whole unique sound to it that's still to this. Here it is. This is what 78, right? So that's what 45 years ago. Jules and the Polar Bears. My love for them grows stronger with every year. It's not a situation where, like, yeah, I love that album. It's every time I listen to it, it's just, to me, it's the same exact thing that happens with the Clash London Calling album. We all know that's a great album. We've all heard it a million times, but for some reason, every year, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And that's what the Polar Bears do for me. Just somehow I connect with this in a different way than I connect with the Beat 2020. My love for those bands is just as passionate, but somehow Jules and the Polar Bears, there's something deep inside me that just makes me just love this band just more and more every year.
So I'm curious, because you mentioned before when we've talked that you were one of those guys, one of those kids that would go through the bins and looking for those bands, the Beat, the whatever, the Jam, the Knack. And you were a sucker for those bands.
Yeah,
or at
absolutely.
least try them out.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
Was it about? Was this the same kind of thing? Because there's no the. How did you?
I know.
Did you just take a chance on it?
I took a chance on it.
Yeah.
Because I knew that they were from the LA scene. And I had been hearing about these punk and new wave and power pop band stuff. I don't think that 2020 was out when this first album came out, but there was that excitement already. And I was just searching. I'm still to this day searching for stuff. I'm searching for the lost chord, is basically searching for that chord change that makes me go, holy crap.
Makes you stand back and go, outer body experience, so to speak.
I call them holy shit moments, where I literally will be listening, and then, like, let's say these harmonies come in or a chord change, I'll just go, holy shit. I mean, I will literally say that when I'm listening to it for the first time. And Jules and the Polar Bears, full of those holy shit moments. Do I love every Jules and the Polar Bears song? No. When they try to rock out or whatever, I think those are good songs, but it's the songs where they remain true to this unique sound. That is just thinking about it just drives me crazy. I love
So
him
when you say that unique sound, you think it extends more than just Jules Shear? Do you think it's just it is the combination of the polar bears together that makes this sound?
It's the chemistry. It is the polar bears. I really dig Jules post polar bears.
Yeah,
Right.
I
But
do too.
he
I love it.
became a different songwriter.
How do you fit? How do you? This is fascinating. And what? How do you figure?
I believe that his songwriting became more refined, more focused. Whereas with the polar bears, he's just like going, yes, he's just grabbing everything out of the air, throwing it into this pot and saying, let's fucking rock.
Mm-hmm.
Can I curse on your show?
You can.
Okay, thank you. And when I say rock, I don't literally mean it. It's just like, let's do this. I don't think that at that point that he thought to himself, I need to create boundaries. Because I think with the polar bears, I think it was the sky's the limit. If they were going to do weird, like, ooh, ooh, in a song, then they were going to do, ooh, ooh,
I know.
in a
I was
song.
listening to that today, and it made me just go, just makes you, you have to listen to the Jules and the polar bears to even get, you just can't imagine. But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
And see, to me, they're kind of, well, anybody, let's get back to this. So I think that as he grew and matured as a songwriter, just like anybody else, just like you, me, everybody else, that when you get older, your tastes change or your ideas change.
Right.
When you're 16, working a fryer at a fast food restaurant is not a big deal to you. That's just money, so you can go out and buy records or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're 28, working the fryer, it's not really that cool. So you have to move out of town where you don't know anybody and then work a fryer somewhere. But
I totally get that. Yeah.
Your everything about your way of thinking changes as you grow. And I think that Jules Shear, and I don't know Jules, never met him. And I would probably cry if he signed to my Jules and the Polar Bear CDs. But I think that he just grew as a songwriter. So he started realizing, well, you know what? I'm going to touch somebody if I maybe get rid of this and I focus on this, because I'm not feeling these things anymore. I'm feeling this, this is still very strong in my heart and soul, but with new experiences, I'm going to be adding those new influences. I'm going to be adding those. Look at Dan Wilson from Semisonic. When you go back and you listen to Trip Shakespeare, very unconventional songwriter, but a very great pop songwriter. But they had this thing where they'd go the falsetto and they do this and they do that. By the time he got to Semisonic, it became more refined. And then by the time Semisonic split, he became, he co-wrote songs with Taylor Swift and Adele and stuff, and became like a million-selling songwriter. And this is some guy from Minneapolis in a kooky and wonderful alternative band called Trip Shakespeare. That's where he started, and he was invited into the band by his brother Matt. Come play with us. And then he became, he's probably like a multi-hundred-aire by now. He's probably got a couple $100 in the bank.
Probably from all the song royalties, I'm sure.
Exactly.
That's what it's from.
Right. And that's how I think of Jules Shear. I think that what he or who he was when he was 21 or 23 is not who he was when he was 30. So when he started writing things like If She Knew What She Wants or Whispering Your Name, things like this, when he started writing those songs, or All Through the Night, then all of a sudden he's writing from a different perspective because he's a different person. Mm-hmm. And I love the Jules and the Polar Bear stuff. Now I have to dip back into his solo career because there's a lot of his solo albums I missed. But this Jules and the Polar Bear stuff is just remarkable.
Yeah,
I can't kind of compare it to Sparks. Sparks were always, and they were back in the early 70s up to now, 50 years later, they remain a very unconventional band. They create the music that they create, right? And there's probably been times where their label said, we need a little bit of this, but no. generally speaking, Sparks have gone on and they've created their own musical universe. I think Jules and the Polar Bears, with those 4 musicians, they'd never brought in producers. It was always them. They were the ones in control of the music. And, maybe the labels had a problem or an issue with some things, whatever. But all I can say is they created some of the most unique music. It's not new wave. It's not power pop. It's none of that. But it's all of that at the same time. It's amazing. And like I said, he just fits in all these words. Where five syllables would fit, he manages to cram about 17 words in there sometimes.
Yeah, but he only did that for so long. Just that Polar Bears period.
Exactly.
Because like you said, he grew as a songwriter. And that's not taking anything away from his earlier material.
Correct.
But you have to, what I got turned on to, I totally missed Jules and the Polar Bears.
Uh-huh.
How I got turned on to this, Steve, was cover songs that people did his songs. The Bangles, Cyndi Lauper, and
Alison Moyet did Whispering Your Name.
These artists built him up so much.
Yeah.
And if you did a search, very critically acclaimed, the Jules and the Polar Bear stuff, critics' darlings, they love that stuff. It's Jules and the Polar Bears is an acquired taste. In fact, Jules Shear's an acquired taste. I'd say if you look at the Jules Shear solo catalog, it's a lot more accessible than the Polar Bears.
Absolutely.
And both of them are strong for different reasons. But I think Jules' songwriting, I'm going to say his stuff that he did for Polydor, Great Puzzle, and Healing Bones, probably his best work he ever did, I think. But that's solo material. I'm not trying to compare it to, I should be clear, I'm not comparing it to Jules and the Polar Bears. But as a solo, we're talking like a Jules Shear show now, but whatever, we're just talking. Those things are great. But Jules is still putting out stuff. Gosh, I'm just looking at his catalog, he's probably put out 8 or 9 more albums since those Polydor albums in the 90s, so he's still very prolific and still putting stuff out. None of his later catalog sounds anything like this stuff, though.
No.
Quirky. It's quirky is what it really is.
The great thing about Jules Shear is that he is a very, very distinctly original songwriter, uniquely, distinctly, whatever word you want to use, very original. And there are songs that, we talked about the Bangles, If She Knew What She Wants, Alison Moyet, Whispering Your Name, Cyndi Lauper, All Through the Night. These are songs that very accessible, but there are other songs that are not as accessible, but are just as moving or just as exciting. I can't imagine. Well, I was going to say here, I was going to save this for last, but I'm going to do this now.
All right.
I was going to say that the Polar Bear stuff is probably, I thought for years it was uncoverable. It could never be covered. I think that people would have gone solo. Well, good old Ian Matthews from Fairport Convention, Matthews Southern Comfort, Hi-Fi. He had a big hit single with Shake It back in the late 70s. He put out an album called Walking a Changing Line. And it's cover versions of Jules Shear material. And, this is the expanded edition that has demos and stuff. But I'd say 75-80% of the songs he covers there by Jules Shear are all Polar Bear songs. And he actually crafts them to sound even more accessible, because Jules and the Polar Bears, to me, they're accessible. And, well,
they're accessible, but they're not accessible like in a commercial sense. You wouldn't think that any of these songs would chart.
Well, actually, there's a couple songs on this, like Following Every Finger, I thought could have been a hit single.
Well,
absolutely.
That I agree. Have you ever heard, did you ever hear, there was like an EP that came out, Unplug This. Did you ever hear that? It came out, it was a promo
No, I never
Polydor
did.
promo that came out in 91 prior to The Great Puzzle.
That's in my Discogs basket, and I can't afford it yet.
Okay. Well, it should. I remember getting mine for like $1 in the bin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got. This is him playing acoustic guitar. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Bare bones, because he hosts Unplugged.
I watched that show because it was hosted by Jules Shear.
Okay. Dig this though. Since we're just talking Jules, opens with Following Every Finger, and the version of that with him just playing acoustic guitar will hit you in the back of your neck.
Really?
I swear to God, this EP is phenomenal. It'll hit you, and you'll sit there and, Jules is an acquired taste vocally, but on this EP that he does, the recording is so good, and his emotion and how he sings these tracks. Look, he's grown as a vocalist too since the Polar Bear days. But this says, following every finger all through the night, whispering your name, if she knows what she wants, if we never meet again.
Oh, yeah, it's a great
Jewel
song.
in a Cobweb, the sad sound of the wind, phenomenal. And Never Again or Forever, which was written by Jules and Rick Danko. It's great. It's wonderful. It's just him playing guitar. It's so intimate and personal. And his treatment, just with the acoustic guitar. L.A. Easton.
He's all over this album.
Yeah.
And you can especially like the song Shayla, which was just the best song on the album by far.
I agree.
That has Jules Shear all over it.
Mm-hmm.
But then Jules Shear's all over this thing. Thing about the Polar Bears.
Yes, sir.
Is now this is the second album, Phonetics, came out in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
This is an even better album, in my opinion. Could not believe that they could put out something, and this is so full of great. I mean, there's songs on this like Faded Red. See, like things like when they do Fate. Fate's not a song that I'm a big fan of, but like Faded Red, and it's an incredible record. But the most amazing thing is okay, this came out in 79. In 1980, they put out an EP called Economy Package. And in my opinion, it's one of the best 7-inch pieces of vinyl, because it's 4 songs that they recorded, I believe, after this album, or could have been during the sessions. I don't know. And those 4 songs are added to the Wounded Bird CD.
Okay.
Those are Sometimes Real Life, Born Out of Heat, Alive Alone, and This Fabrication. And those just, if I thought that this was good and then this was better, those 4 songs, I thought to myself, this is incredible. I cannot believe this band just keeps getting better and better. And you keep saying he's an acquired taste as a vocalist.
Well, if you haven't
I
listened
understand
to Jules in a long time, and then you listen to him, it's still always a bit jarring until you kind of.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that Polydor stuff, that later 90s period.
Yeah.
He's a lot more refined. He has honed in on his vocals.
Yeah.
Because on this, he's pretty out there in a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, I don't think it's an acquired taste. I think he's uniquely himself.
Well,
like
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a Jules and the Polar Bears fan, and somebody got a hold of some unreleased song and they played it for you, you'd know right away that's freaking Jules Shear. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the chemistry with these 4 guys was amazing. But his songwriting, before we move on to the next record. But by the way, both of these were reissued by Wounded Bird, but I believe that they are both now out of print. And they are incredible. This one has an unreleased song called I Only Feel Bad, plus the 4 songs from the EP. And this has 3 previously unreleased songs and the single edit of You Just Don't Want to Know. Incredible releases. These are 2 of Wounded Bird's finest releases. to this day, like I said, I love them more and more and more. It just uniquely captured a moment in time that I connected with. Maybe it's because, being, at that point I was in junior high school, and I wasn't fitting in with anything. So I was sort of attracted to maybe the more, the bands that didn't sound like they fit in. But it's not that they, like with me, I didn't fit in just because I'm a dork, right? But with them, they didn't fit in because they were, Jules Shear's songwriting abilities were sort of above and beyond the accepted norm.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't sit here and say like, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. He said, this is what's coming out. This is what we're playing. Then you have Steven come in and add his keyboard, and all four of them arranging the songs, and it's just incredible. I mean, I cannot say enough about how much I love these two records. Like I said, I'm not comparing it musically to The Clash's London Calling, but with every listen, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And just truly incredible. But they recorded an album in 1980, and oh boy, did I have a lot of excitement, after that economy package or whatever.
You're right.
Yeah. And then they broke up. Now,
they broke up after the third record, but
nothing came out.
Nothing came out. Let me ask you this.
Until 1992.
I wasn't following them then, okay?
Okay.
Were you aware back in your younger days that they were recording a third record? Had you heard anything about it?
I had not, but I thought that those four songs that came out on that EP, I thought that was kind of like a signal, like, hey, here's a single before the next album comes out.
It's like the Pretenders when they put out that EP, Message of Love, and it's like, well, this, woo. But that kind of took that's a whole other story, but that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. Now, the thing about this, of course, I had many, many, many years to listen to those records.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was going to be the album cover before, but it's like, didn't they learn from Orleans that you just don't put topless pictures of men on your album
I think it was supposed to be the album cover.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, 2/3 of this album matches the quality of that. There's a third of this album that I still haven't been able to get into. But there are songs like Only Emotion, which is incredible. In Love with a Ballet, When the World Was Old. In fact, I just did a quote on Facebook today from that song.
I saw that.
Yeah, there's a couple rockers on here that I'm not into. Maybe it's more like I'm into 3/4 of this album.
Well, the other thing is, think about this, Steve. You look at the tracks. We're talking this is 1980. I think this has everything that they've recorded. And I don't think this necessarily was going to be the track order, because 13 tracks is a bit long if you think about it. Great for a CD.
Yeah.
But I think this is just all those sessions that they probably laid down, and they just went, well, here they are. There was never really an album solidified.
Well, here's the crazy thing about it. And this is what happens when artists are, I don't want to say he's better than, okay, Jules Shear's far more creative than most people from his generation.
Oh yeah, as a songwriter, I'm going to say songwriter, light years. The guy is truly gifted, and that's that's exactly why we're talking about it.
Right,
people, this band or Jules Shear, for God's sakes, everything, songwriting, the whole shebang. He needs recognition. So, but
yes, but in the liner notes, he says that they turned this album into Sony, or the managers, or people who run the label, and they turned it down. And he had made a comment about, he felt that this album was the album that, something to the effect of like, this is the one where they kind of, this should have been the commercial album, maybe the one that the label was going to get behind, as opposed to the first two. I don't know if he realized that they were still unique and different from anybody else. This is not standard stuff. Now, sure, Only Emotion is great, or When the World Was Old.
Mhm.
Like I said, those are, excuse me, great pop songs. But In Love with the Ballet, that's kooky.
It's kooky.
Yeah.
And on this, they use it as the opening track, which is kookier.
Yes.
But
yes.
I don't know what the track listing was. I've never read anything about it. I don't remember if they mentioned that in the liner notes or anything.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was really a track listing. I don't know. I'm not even, you know what, Steve? To be honest, I'm surprised this even came out.
So am I. But the interesting thing is Jules did write the liner notes, so he obviously approved it. Maybe he actually put them in the order that it was supposed to be.
Maybe.
Or maybe he put them in the order that in 1996, his older self, put this in some kind of order.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's not as good as the first two, but it's kind of, there are songs on here that are even weirder than the first two. And now when I say weird, I'm not talking Residence weird or Per Ubu weird or anything like that. People think that XTC was weird. I don't know. I just think they're unconventional and they're quirky and eccentric.
Kind of like Oingo Boingo. Quirky.
Yes. But just, I guess, unconventional, quirky, all those words, can mean pretty much the same thing, that this band is just not a top 40 band unless the public is more accepting of originality. Because you have to remember that over time, I mean, I'm surprised. I think the Beatles are the only band that came out with an original sound, mm-hmm. and the public allowed them to change over time and constantly rewarded them for their innovation and their change, and they continue to stay top of top of the charts. Other bands have changed and evolved, and they've had massive dips in popularity. Maybe they never came back. You listen to ABC, every one of their albums was different. The Stranglers changed after the first 3 or 4 albums.
The thing about the Beatles, though, when you mention that, it's true. Mm-hmm. They were so big and so well accepted by their fans and the public, critics, mm-hmm. They could morph and change, but their change wasn't instantaneous overnight. Some of these bands that you're talking about, they'll put out one record and it's like night and day. It was a gradual progression with the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say the Beach Boys, with Beach Boys too. But with the Beatles, it was a gradual progression.
Yeah.
But they still always sounded like the Beatles.
Yeah.
See, some of those other bands, they can morph and they don't. You're sitting there going, what happened?
Yeah. In terms of Jules and the Polar Bears, the great thing about them also is when you put them on, you could not tell mm-hmm. what their influences were. I never heard a single lick of the Beatles in there, but did they think that they sounded like the Beatles? Because remember, when you read interviews with Paul McCartney talking about Long Tall Sally or something, from the first couple of years, their version of Long Tall Sally, the Beatles are saying, oh, that's us being R&B. No, it doesn't sound like R&B. It's the freaking Beatles. It's rock and roll. But in their minds, they're doing R&B.
Well, that was right. Of course. Right.
And is Jules and the Polar Bears, is this them doing what they think is the Beatles, or is this them doing Coltrane, or is this them doing Sun Ra? What influences are there? I can't tell you.
I can't tell you that.
I haven't read Jules Shear biographies and stuff like that. I mean, I love these records. I normally follow that stuff and pay attention, but I also love the mystery of the Polar Bears. The fact that these 4 musicians came in and created this music that is probably not, I think we're both getting beaten around the bush. It's not for everybody. But if you like creative, if you're into the way that XTC did things or the way that Sparks did things, they sound nothing like those bands.
No.
But they occupied their own little universe and created some fantastic and amazing songs that when you hear them for the first time after I've talked about them, you might go like, oh, what's he getting on about? But just wait until you sort of peel away that first layer. And then you just go, holy crap, there's a lot going on here. This is an original singer-songwriter. I don't think that he wrote a song similar to the Polar Bears after the Polar Bears.
No.
If you listen to Watchdog, his first solo album, there's a song called Standing Still, which is my favorite solo Jules Shear song, at least at this moment. It could change tomorrow. But I think that for some reason, that sounds like it could have been a Polar Bear song. I don't know why.
Well, it could have been.
Because his lyrics were also amazing too. Sometimes I had no idea what the hell he was singing about, but it just, and I don't want to say it sounded poetic because sometimes he wasn't rhyming, but it just sounded great. It sounded original. It sounded exciting.
Right.
And so.
But yeah, I think what you said about Sparks and XTC, I mean, those bands are definitely unique, though I think, with XTC, you could probably sense some influences.
Yes.
Sparks, I think, are a little bit more harder to pinpoint influence-wise because they're all over the place.
Yeah.
They'll produce one record, and then the next record could be totally different.
Yeah.
And they're much more of like a chameleon type of band.
Yeah.
But at XTC, you know what they were into. They loved all the 60s bands, the Kinks, the Beatles. Jules and the Polar Bears, you cannot pinpoint any influences. They are totally an entity amongst themselves. I don't know what their influences are.
Yeah, it's incredible. And here it is, this is 45 years after these things were recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk about them and still get just as excited about them as I was, that many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty incredible band.
Mm-hmm. Pretty incredible band that no one really talks about. And that's why we talk about it here on the Warehouse, because it's a band. Well, just like Steve's channel, we do the same thing. We talk about these acts, these bands that no one else is talking about. Are we going to get a bazillion hits? No, but we are passionate about these groups, and we think that, come on, if you're a music fan, if you like XTC, you like Sparks, you're not familiar with the Polar Bears, crying out loud, do a taste test, see if you dig them, because I think you'll probably get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, Got No Breeding is the first album, and if you get the Wounded Bird version, it has bonus tracks. Phonetics is the second album, and that has bonus tracks, including all 4 songs from the Economy package EP or Economy release, whatever. And then this one, it's called Bad for Business. This was recorded in 1980. Here, I'll sort of dip down the cover there so you don't have to look at boobies. Yeah. I don't want to get you. Will
that get me banned?
Yeah.
Male nipples?
But Bad for Business is an album that was recorded in 1980, wasn't released until 1996. And just a band that I love to talk about, and I'd love to share that excitement about. I don't know the ins and outs of this group because I love the mystery.
I don't either. Right.
Would I love to interview Jules Shear? Oh, heck yeah.
Of course.
I mean, I've interviewed a bunch of people on my channel, and I'll still be interviewing a bunch of people on my channel. I don't think Jules Shear would want to come on and talk about Jules and the Polar Bears.
Why?
But
you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Check out Jules and the Polar Bears. Hell, check out Jules Shear solo, whatever. Check out Steve Schnee's channel. The links are down below. Please like, subscribe. Hang out over in the ski lodge on Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you for the plugs.
Mr. Schnee's always putting out content all the time. So check out his channel, like, subscribe. If you dig my channel, you'll like his channel even more because he goes even more in depth of these bands than what I do. He's even more like this.
Weirder.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to take in all kinds of different people and talk about different bands that no one talks about. You know, it's all a learning experience. A lot of it is, and see if you can get turned on to something else.
I think it's important. I don't think that I'm cool for doing it, but I think that somewhere, or someone is going to say like, "Oh, I've never heard of this band. I'm going to see what he has to say," and then the next day they could be online ordering Jules and the Polar Bears or whoever I talk about.
Well, literally, you listen to Steve and his picks, because literally I've written down bands because we were talking about it, and every band that he's turned me on to, I've not regretted it. He's always spot on. So your mileage may vary, but check out his channel. That's all I'm going to say.
Always keep your mind open to music. Grant's that way. I'm that way. I'm constantly searching for the lost chord. I'm the kind of guy that says there is great music being made today. Don't believe, everyone goes, oh my God, they don't, make good music anymore. It's like, yeah, maybe if you buy Hackney Diamonds by the Rolling Stones, and that's the only album you buy this year, then okay, maybe, you're not hearing everything that's going on around you, but there's just so much great music. Look at all this, some of this is new, some of it's old, all of it's awesome.
All of it's from pre-1980, but it's okay. Well, the thing is, this is a whole other discussion, but it's not like the old days where you'd have bands coming out, you get backing by the record company, promotion, you'd have magazines to go, you get your new Rolling Stone, look at the reviews. Maybe Rolling Stone is good.
No, Trouser Press.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm going to pull a CD. I just started pulling a CD, and I'm telling you right now, this is post 1980 for sure. Okay. Are you ready? Dag nabbit.
You're wrong. What's that? 79, 78?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it could be 80, 81.
Is that the thing from, that's,
one of my favorite album covers of all time.
I love it. I love that. But anyway, we could ramble on all night.
Exactly.
But Steve, I appreciate you coming on the show talking.
I appreciate you asking me, because we've been trying to do this. Shoes present tense.
Yeah, great record.
Yep.
One of my favorite Shoes albums.
Yep.
It's a classic power pop record.
Came out about the same time as the second Jules and the Polar Bears
79. Album. I think that's 79.
Yep.
Great stuff. Love it. I've got that Esoteric box set, both of those box sets.
Yeah. What you should do is go out and get that Real Gone Music best of. I wrote the liner notes.
What's the best of called? I might have had it.
It's called like 35 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
but I probably have all those tracks already.
It doesn't matter. You don't have my liner notes.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Well, okay. I'll write that down too.
Yeah, I'll stop by and I'll autograph it for you.
Awesome. I'm all excited. All right, everybody. We're going to wrap this dog up. Like I said, Steve and I could ramble on for days.
Yeah, but, absolutely. We could.
Check out Jules. Check out the Polar Bears. Let us know what you think. If you heard these records, please leave a comment. Check out Steve's channel, and we will see you on the next one. There you go.